Welcome to Weekend Wisdom by Creating a Family. This is our podcast where we answer your questions, which means, of course, that we need your questions. So you can send them to us at info@creatingafamily.org. Again, that's info@creatingafamily.org. All right, we're going to jump right into today's question. It is from Brad, and it's a long one. I've been listening to your podcast for a few years now. Our 10-year-old kinship adopted daughter has lived with us since she was 2 months old. For a variety of reasons, there hasn't been any in-person visits or phone calls with her birth mom, who is my sister. Communications have been limited to holiday and birthday cards, as well as gifts. My sister has schizophrenia and bipolar disorders. Because she has been stable on her medication and her behaviors are typically within a somewhat predictable range, we're thinking it's time to begin an in-person relationship. We're planning on first writing a letter to my sister to tell her our thoughts on all of this and to establish some ground rules and boundaries. After she's had some time to digest that letter, my wife and I are planning on meeting with her in person without our daughter to firm up plans, expectations, etc. My questions are, what are some generally good boundaries to set up? How can we help prepare my sister for potentially tough questions from our daughter? My sister is in denial that anything is wrong with her. How can we prepare our daughter for all of this? How can we do this in a way that doesn't feel like we are wagging our finger at my sister or being above her? Another dynamic we're working through is my wife has not seen my sister since our daughter's 4th birthday. We had a short period of visits during that time, and on that day, things went very poorly and the police had to be involved and they arrested my sister. Our daughter does not have any memory of this. I see my sister somewhat regularly as she lives with my dad about 20 minutes away. My wife has wanted nothing to do with her for the last 6 years. Any thoughts on how to help the relationship between my wife and sister would be very welcome as well. My wife and I are going to counseling, and that's a lot of the reason we're finally moving in this direction with my sister. Thank you so much. Whew, there's a lot to this question, Brad. First, I'm really happy that you and your wife are in counseling to help you to navigate all of this. And as I often say, keep in mind that I am not a mental health professional, but I can share my thoughts. I think it helps for you and your wife to be centered on why you're taking this step to establish these in-person relationships with your sister and your daughter's birth mom. You know, it might be tempting to think that you're doing this for your sister or for family harmony. But in the end, you are doing this for your daughter. Chances are overwhelmingly good that your daughter will someday have some type of relationship with her birth mom. I mean, after all, she lives only 20 minutes away from her mom. I can only imagine how strained family events are already. And as your daughter ages, she's going to become more aware of this. Plus, we know that many adoptees wonder about their birth parents. The fact that they don't ask questions is not indicative that they don't think about the people who gave birth to them. Very often they want answers as to who they are and where they come from and why aren't they living with their birth parents. And they often want some type of relationship. And this relationship with her birth mom is going to be complicated because of her mom's mental health issues. So one very good reason to establish a relationship now is to provide a role model for your daughter on how to manage a relationship with someone who has schizophrenia and bipolar. She needs to learn how to establish healthy boundaries and establish them with respect, and how not to get sucked into drama if that's an issue with her mom, and other things such as that. So knowing that your daughter is going to someday very likely be navigating a relationship with her birth mom, your job as her parents is to prepare her for how to handle this relationship. So one of the first things is your daughter needs to understand schizophrenia and bipolar, how they can affect a person's behavior. Discuss that the person is still capable of loving her and loving her very dearly, but that their behavior may be erratic. I don't know your sister's situation, so you would need to adapt this discussion to fit the reality of what her capabilities are and how the disease reflects in her. And you don't want to make your daughter afraid, but you want to prepare her. And there are great children's books that explain mental illness. The National Alliance on Mental Illness lists some on their website, or you can call them and get information. You can go to the library to see what children's books are available to explain mental illness. I would look for books specifically, however, on schizophrenia and bipolar, because a lot of the books I've seen really focus on depression or anxiety. So I do think it would be more helpful if it was more specific to bipolar or schizophrenia. You might get some suggestions from organizations such as the Schizophrenia and Psychosis Action Alliance. If they don't have it on their site, you may be able to call because others, family members with somebody with schizophrenia are also facing this issue. You also want your daughter to know that you are there to help her and that she doesn't have to figure out how to create a relationship on her own. One thing to prepare for in advance is that your daughter, as she ages, is very likely going to worry that she's going to develop schizophrenia or bipolar disease. So do some research in advance on the heritability and the genetic connection of these illnesses so that you can share that information with her. And if she doesn't ask, you might want to, as she ages, gets a little older, see if she's worrying about it. If she doesn't bring it up, you bring it up. Creating a Family covers this topic in several places, including our shows on evaluating risk factors in adoption. Or you could also just Google we have covered this topic a number of times. I would then ask your daughter how she would like to proceed to start a relationship. What would she feel comfortable with? Would she like to FaceTime with her birth mom first? Or would she rather just send text using your phone to begin with? You might suggest that she draw her a picture of one of her favorite activities or something like that for you to send to her. And when it's time to meet in person, ask your daughter if she would like to meet at a park first, the first time or the first couple of times, or to meet up at a coffee shop. And then as things progress, ask her if she'd like to go to Grandpa's house to visit with them, or does she want her birth mom to come to your house? Assuming you're okay with any of those options, get information for her, how she wants to proceed and how fast she wants to proceed. And depending on how things develop and how stable your sister is, you may want to develop a signal between you and your daughter to use if she feels overwhelmed and she wants to end the visit sooner. So those are just some general information up front. Now to your specific questions. Your first, what are some generally good boundaries to set up? So work through the boundaries with your daughter. She should be a part of helping because they should be boundaries that make her feel safe and proceed at the speed she's interested in. Some of the ones we want to include was how to begin, where to meet, how long to meet. Does the birth mom need to work through you to set things up, dropping by unannounced, things like that. And your sister needs to understand that you're moving at a pace that is best for your daughter and that you're following your daughter's lead. And I realize that your sister may not believe this and think that you're slowing things down, but your focus should be on the child. So your second question, how can we prepare my sister for potentially tough questions from our daughter? That your sister is in denial that anything's wrong. Depending on the level of delusion your sister is under, you may need to prepare your daughter that her birth mom won't be able to answer some of these hard questions because of her mental illness. As things develop with the relationship, ask your daughter what questions she has, and then brainstorm with her about how to ask them and to increase the chances that she's going to get an answer. The other thing is brainstorm between you and your wife and your dad about, are there other people in the family that can answer these questions other than her birth mom? And that brings up another question I had. Where is your dad in all of this? Could he be a support for your sister and perhaps help her set realistic expectations? All right, your third question, how can we prepare our daughter for all this? I think I've already addressed I think that was what the whole first part, what I was talking about. 4, how can we do this in a way that doesn't feel like we're wagging our finger at my sister and being above her? I think explaining to your sister that you and she are on the same team with the same goal. You both want what's best for your shared daughter. And let her know that you believe having a relationship with her mom is in the best interest of your daughter and that you're going to do everything you can to facilitate this and that you know that she's going to do that too. And also, and I don't know if this is a part of it for you, but forgive her for her past behavior and accept that mental illness is a huge burden. And your sister is doing the best she can with the hand she's been dealt. And your last question is how to improve your wife's relationship with your sister. Well, in addition to what I just said about the burden of mental illness, with the emphasis on the word illness, also point out that blaming someone with mental illness for their behavior is like blaming someone with cancer for being tired. Perhaps more to the point, your wife needs to focus on the why. Why are you reestablishing this relationship? She isn't improving relations with your sister for you, or for your sister, or for your dad, or for herself, or for your marriage. She needs to work with your sister because her daughter needs her guidance on how to do this. Her daughter is going to have a lifelong relationship with this person, and it's going to be complicated, and she needs her parents to lead the way. And if that doesn't work, assure her that they don't have to be friends. They just need to be polite. At the very least, she needs not to talk bad about your sister because this woman is her daughter's mother. And depending on how your daughter and your wife are handling this reunion, you might want to consider some family therapy with a mental health provider who is adoption competent, or just therapy for your daughter to give her another safe adult to help her process this experience. And we have resources on how to find a mental health professional who is adoption competent on creatingafamily.org. Click on adoption topics, then click on post-adoption, and then click on therapy resources. Brad, I wish you the best of luck with this, and I hope this has helped. And for everyone else, I want you guys to remember that Creating a Family has a parental substance exposure workshop for parents who think or know that their children were exposed prenatally to alcohol or drugs. You can get more information at bit.ly/prenatal-exposure-training. That's bit.ly/prenatal-exposure-training. Thanks for listening to this week's Week in Wisdom. If you liked it, please tell a friend to subscribe to the creatingafamily.org podcast, and I will see you next week.